read us the essential question?
How do you factor the sum of different cubes?
Good. Avery, can you read us the first I can statement there? Perfect. So there's some factoring we have not done yet, okay? We have not done the Algebra 2 really level of factoring. We really kind of stuck with the Algebra 1 level stuff. Plus then we added greatest common factor and factor completely. That was Algebra 2, okay? So these are some other types of factoring that we're responsible for. So the other word in here that we also haven't talked about is the word polynomial. We've talked about a trinomial. What's trinomial mean? How many terms? That means 3 terms, right? 3 terms. All right. What's a binomial? 2 terms. What's a monomial? 1 term. Poly, that prefix, it means many. So many terms. That could mean 2 terms. That qualifies as a polynomial. It could be 3 terms. It could be 4 terms. It could be 5 terms. It could be 6 terms. Okay. We're probably not going to get into the 5 and 6. Maybe I'll make that a weekly skills check further on down the line. We'll see if I can challenge you later. But we're just going to work with 2s and 3s, maybe 4, and then we'll have some 4s when we do the grouping. Okay. All right. In order to understand sum and difference of cubes, you need to understand your cube numbers, which we've worked on those a little bit this year. But this is going to come up in a couple of places in the next couple of weeks. Okay. So we're going to make a list of our cube numbers. The ones I would expect you to have memorized, though they are always on the walls, but they won't be on the walls when we go to take like the SBAC. Okay. So, because that's coming up this semester. Juniors take the SBAC and the sophomores take the practice SBAC. So, all right. So 1 cubed is 1. 2 cubed is, what is 2 cubed? You guys tell me. 8. There we go. Remember, we're talking about 3 times 3 times 3. So what's 3 cubed? 27. Good. 4 cubed. 64. Some of us can read the wall really well. All right. What's 5 cubed? Not 5 squared. 5 cubed. 125. 6 cubed. 216. 7 cubed. 340. And then the one that I don't know that 8 and 9 come up a lot, but 10 cubed is what? That one you should know, right? You just have to count the number of zeros when you do 10s. So 10s is a perfectly reasonable thing to have memorized, okay? All right. So there's a pattern when we do sum and difference of cubes. You'll notice, look at the problems. They're 2 terms. So now when I have 2 terms, I have to be careful and make sure that I have a cube versus a square. And that gets a little bit tricky because look at this. That's a cube number and a square number, isn't it? So it was 1, okay? You have to be a little bit careful with those 2. I forgot to do the finish the left-hand column. Let me finish the left-hand column, then we'll talk about the pattern. So the very first thing we look for every time we factor is what? Greatest common factor. So that hasn't changed, okay? What has changed is when we have 2 terms. When we have 2 terms, we check to see if it's a difference of squares or a sum / difference. I'm not going to spell out the word difference because I don't have enough space, of cubes. So with cubes, you can have a sum or a difference. All right. They just have to be cube things. Okay. When we have 3 terms, that's when we do the magic X and the magic X box, right? Those are our options, depending upon if we have a leading coefficient or not. We won't learn this one until Tuesday because you've been working so hard since we've been back from winter break that we need a day off on Monday, right? So I'm giving you Monday off. All right. It was all my idea. Okay. All right. 4 terms is grouping. So we'll talk about grouping on Tuesday. All right. Let's take a look at how we actually do cubes. Okay, so our focus is going to be just on cubes today. We're going to see a little bit of greatest common factor in there. Okay, so I'm going to always put it in. All right, so the pattern is fairly consistent for both of them. It factors into a binomial times a trinomial. Okay, so I use a short parentheses and a long parentheses. Make sure you see how I spaced it. We're going to write a bunch of stuff in there. So you might want to give yourself what looks like a ridiculous amount of space. Okay. What operation is sum? Addition. Okay. So if I have something that is, I should have really written, no, if I have a plus sign in there to begin with, I'm going to start with this pattern. So my factoring is plus, if I start with a plus sign, difference means minus, right? So my binomial will be a minus if I start with a minus sign. Okay. The back sign is always a plus in your trinomial. 100% of the time, it's always a plus. And then when we do this factoring, you always have to have at least one negative. Or you only have, actually, exactly one negative. Not at least one. Exactly one negative. So my pattern is either plus, minus, plus, or minus, plus, plus. And I always put that in first. So you do have to kind of have your pattern memorized. Okay. You're going to be given a cube factor. So to get this part, you take a cubed root of the front, a cubed root of the back. And this is more to when you're going in and you're trying the homework assignment to kind of refresh your memory. What did we do? Okay. Because it's not going to make a whole lot of sense until we actually try a problem. This here, we're going to square. So just write, I'm writing and square in the back. So we square and square. I'm using SQ for square. So square and square. And then in the middle, we multiply. So it's kind of our hints on what we have to do to get this done. That says multiply. So it doesn't matter whether you have a sum or a difference. How it lays in there after the sign pattern is is the same. All right, our instructions are exactly the same as they were when we were factoring before. It's factor completely. I added the word polynomial because now we're in the polynomial unit, but I could just write factor completely. I could just write factor, and that means factor completely. Okay. All right, so I'm going through my list of factoring steps. In this first one here, do I have a greatest common factor? Is there something that divides 216 and 27? I don't think so, right? Oh, 3 might, but that's not what I was going for. So we're gonna pretend there's not a greatest common factor. So then I know that I have to look and see if there's square or how many terms are there? 2. So that means I have to determine if they're squares or cubes. So is 216 a square number or a cube number? Cube number. Is x cubed qualify as a square or a cubed? Cubed. Okay, what about 27? Square or cubed? Cube. So I know I'm doing sum and difference of cubes. Okay. So I'm going to write a binomial times a trinomial. All right. Do you see how we started with a negative sign? So that's the first sign I put in. And then I follow my pattern. What were my next 2 signs supposed to be? What did we write down? Plus, plus. Good. All right. I'm going to take the cubed root of this thing. So use the sign if you need the help. What's the cubed root of 216? 6. Good. And then what's the cubed root of x cubed? X, right? And that's going to go in the front of just the binomial. Okay. What is the cubed root of 27? 3. I picked really bad because technically there is a greatest common factor in there, but that's okay. We're going to ignore it for right now. All right. I'm going to square this now. So what's 6x squared? 36x squared. What's 3 squared? 9. Good. All right, and then I'm going to ignore the sign and multiply those 2 things together for the middle, 18x. Other than the fact that I messed up and there's a greatest common factor in there, okay? This back piece is never, a magic x is never going to work on it, okay? All right, let's try the next one. It doesn't have a goofy greatest common factor that I should have pulled out. All right, so first thing I look for is greatest common factor. I already said it's not there. How many terms does it have? 2. Are they square terms or cube terms? Cube. And this one, you make the determination based on what else is there, right? Because it's both square and cube. But because these are cube, we're going to go with cubes, okay? So binomial times a trinomial. What sign am I going to start with? Plus. What do my other two signs have to be then? Good. In that order, because the last sign is always a plus. All right, we're going to take the cubed root of 343x cubed. What is it? 7x. All right, we're going to take the cubed root of 64. 4. Good. Then I'm going to ignore the original problem, and I'm going to square and square. So what's 7x squared? 49x squared. Pretty good. What is 4 squared? See, so notice the first term goes to the front, the second term goes to the back. What did we say we had to do with these things to get the middle? Multiply. Good. So what is 7 times 4? 28. And then put an x after it. Not hard, right? But you got to remember it. That's the problem. All right, I want you to try 3 and 4. See if you can do 3 and 4. 4, the only weird thing that's different is we have put 2 variables in it, but it doesn't work any differently than the other one did. Okay? So everybody try 3 and 4. Give you like 30 more seconds. Okay, let's look at example 3. So, do I have a greatest common factor? No, right? Okay. Do I have squares or cubes? Cubes, right? The exponent's a good indicator too, right? If it's a multiple of 3, it's probably a cube. All right, what sign am I going to start with? Minus. What do my other two signs have to be? Plus, plus. All right, I'm going to cubed root 8x cubed. What do you get? 2x. Good. I'm going to cubed root 1. What do you get? Good. I'm going to square the front. So what's 2x squared? And then what's 1 squared? How do we get the middle? And notice I ignore the sign, right? Because I'm not worried about the negative. I put the signs in at the beginning. So I just get 2x. Okay, looking at example 4. Is there a greatest common factor? No? Okay. Squares or cubes? Cubes. All right, because there's 2 terms. What sign goes first? Plus. What are my next 2 signs? Minus, plus. Good. I'm going to cubed root 27x cubed. What do we get? 3x. Good. I'm going to cubed root 125y cubed. 5y. Good. Okay, I'm going to square the front. What do I get for the front? 9x squared. What about squaring the back? 25y squared. Now, the middle's a little bit weird, right? I got to multiply all that together. What'd you get? Good. 15x y, because there's an x and a y. All right. Let's see if we can squeeze in at least example 5 here, okay? There's 2 little tiny things I want to talk about for the quiz. What's the first rule thing I'm always supposed to look for? Every time I factor, what do I look for first? GCF, right? I definitely don't have cubes there or squares there, but I do I have a greatest common factor? What goes into both 16 and 54? Does 16 divide 54? I don't know if it does. Does 4 divide 54 or 2? 2 does, doesn't it? How many times does 2 go into 16? 8. Oh, not just 2. What else should I pull out besides a 2? X, good. All right, I pull out a 2. I get 8x what? Cubed, good. I pull out a 2 out of negative 54, and 2x out of negative 54x. What do I get? Good, negative 27. Do you see how we just got the cube to pop out? Because that's a cube and that's a cube. I'm going to drop down my 2, x. Do a binomial times a trinomial. Okay. What sign am I going to start with? I'm now using this, right? So minus, what are my other two signs? Plus, plus, good. Cubed root of 8x cubed. 2x. Cubed root of 27. 3. I square the first term. What do you get? Good. Square the last term we get. What are we supposed to do to the middle? And what do we get? 6x. Okay. We'll save example 6 to start on Monday. That's enough for you to do the first 5 problems on the homework assignment for that section. Okay. You've got plenty. I want to talk really quick. So pay attention for just like one more minute before we do the quiz, because there's 2 things that pop up on the quiz